Good morning. Another fine day in Gothenburg, and I wish I could say it's sunny, but hey, sun here is like seeing a unicorn, so we just get accustomed to being happy regardless of the weather, I suppose. So, that's the way it is. Now, let's talk about the complexity of software and the anxiety, especially for you young, new programmers. Basically the complexity of software and the reason why I believe that software or development work overall is way too complicated for the human race, and ergo there are going to be bugs, and why you should never ever feel bad for creating a software bug. So, why do I believe this? Well, actually, it's because as you do software development work, you will find that it's more often than not part of your job to solve potential issues and bugs in software. And actually, there is a very nice saying that basically states that any non-trivial system has at least one bug. And this is so accepted in our industry that we can basically with absolute certainty say that every piece of software has a software bug. Because remember something, what you are doing is writing code for a computer program that needs to run with absolute perfection. And perfection is something we humans cannot do. We cannot produce perfection. It's that simple. And that's why we have so many people doing their absolute best in terms of trying to test software, in terms of creating coding practices, and all of this stuff is all created to solve software bugs. Very few discussions actually has to do with, in terms of when it comes to quality and so forth, has to do with anything besides reducing the amount of bugs. So if you already accept the fact that you are going to produce bugs, then you don't really have to beat yourself up for the fact that, when you actually do. It's actually one of my favorite memories from working at Ticketmaster was that when I was first starting out, as the new guy, it was really, you produce your first serious bug and a release goes out into production and there's a bug and you created it. And I felt I did, and I'm feeling so bad. I feel so horribly bad about it. And my colleagues, they keep telling, they're nice people, they'll tell you that, oh, you don't worry about it, or they told me, don't worry about it. And yeah, that's gonna make me feel, less horrible about the whole thing, right? Because now you said it's okay, so therefore, I don't feel bad anymore. Well, that's not how it works for me anyway. But then I have a few months of working, and finally the unthinkable happens. The most, my colleague Mark, who is, to give you a bit of context, he's the most senior person I've ever had the good fortune of working with. He's the type of person who quite literally was there at the dawn of computer programming, and when programmers actually came to be a respectable, standardized profession, or rather that programming was the profession. And he produces a bug, and he's been doing this for what can it be, 20 years maybe, something like that, maybe even longer, I don't know. And he just stands there, he produces a bug and he says, yeah, oh yeah, sorry, that's my bad, guys, I'll fix it after the stand-up. Nothing. He oozed security and confidence. Didn't even bother him that happened. And to me, who was just starting out, and I'm still fairly young in my career, if you will, felt what the fuck, how can you not care that you produced this issue that we now have to solve? So I talked to him about it, and he basically said because I know that if I produce a bug, I can fix it. It's not like I can always fix it. And if I can't fix it, then I'm not really here to blame, because I know that I can't write flawless software. No one can. And because I can't, the problem, and if the requirement is that I write flawless software, then we need better working practices. Like these issues need to be caught at an earlier stage in our own development process, and that's the responsibility of everyone working on the project. And basically he explained to me how the idea of quality and quality assurance is not the responsibility of any one programmer, because we all make mistakes. And it's actually the entire team's responsibility to have a work process that produces consistently the type of results that is good enough for the product that you're working on. So if you to put that in a more absorbable, I don't know, context or description or whatever, if you are working for a software company which is producing, I don't know, something like pacemakers, something where high precision and flawlessness and uptime and a pacemaker can at no point ever go, you'll kill somebody. Same thing with missile defense systems and all that type of stuff. Things that are so critical that they are perfect. That perfection, if that is your requirement, then your work process, not you as the individual developer, your work process needs to reflect that. NASA, for example, has one of the most rigorous and perfected work processes in the world. Because the code that they are producing costs so much, and the technology that they deploy is worth so many millions of dollars. I did read that allegedly each line of code in the Mars rover is worth roughly $5,000. That's an astounding amount of money per line of code. And so it's kind of not, but on the other hand, if you are working on a product such as most of us are most of us are working on non-perfection required software, you may want to be more pragmatic, because having high levels of perfection and low bugs, that's actually a priority at the project level. It's not your fault if you're producing a bug. If you know what you're doing and so forth, it's just remember that it's not your fault, because you can't write perfect code. It's not possible. Think of it this way. Every time you change something, you may cause a bug. Every time you add something, you may cause a bug. Any time the code changes, that's a potential bug. And it's not possible for you to keep the whole system and all the possible combinations of how the software can run in your head. So imagine if that's the limitations of your situation, you have to kind of come to the same conclusion that most of us have. You cannot write bug-free code, so don't beat yourself up about it. Instead, do what should be done for this stuff. Make the mistake, and then learn from it. Learn from it and improve your work process. Learn from it and remember the next time that something like this happens, think about it in terms of how can I improve this situation. And for the most part, stuff like unit testing, linters, and all these supplementary tools that you have at your disposal, these are the ways that you solve this issue. Because trust me, writing bug-free software, it's not possible. I actually will go one further, and I'll say that software development for larger systems is most likely one of the most complex, if not the most complex thing that we humans do. And it's in fact so complicated that even now, and I don't think that's ever going to change as long as there's humans involved, even now we can't do it 100% correctly. And if that's the case, then all we can do is to improve until we get very close to perfect code.